And now, this.
Okay, let's go. Harry Tracy.
Harry Tracy! Trigger warning. The following contains the authentic accounts of factual historical figures and events. If historical information may upset you, then please withdraw now. Retreat.
Well, I guess you know who I am.
Harry Tracy is a true story. This telling is authored from sources spanning over 120 years. All characterized quotations are verbatim from interviews, newspaper articles, and testimonials taken at the time. Scott Martinez. Part 5. Portland.
Harry Tracy!
After escaping the Utah State Pen with his wooden gun, and then shooting down rancher Valentine Hoy, and violently escaping from behind bars 2 more times, Tracy robbed the Exchange Saloon in Billings, Montana.
The Exchange Saloon, Billings, Montana. P.H. Scally, proprietor, held up in his own place of business.
I was robbed of a fine gold watch besides about $82 in cash, which was in the money drawer.
The Billings Gazette, September 20th, 1898. A man named Edward M. Kelly was sentenced to 5 years for robbing the Exchange Saloon. The evidence was the fine gold watch. Kelly had produced it after being told that P.H. would buy rounds of champagne on return of the watch.
I'd buy rounds of champagne anyone returned my fine gold watch.
Edward Kelly returned the watch and was arrested for the theft. Harry Tracy heard about it. Harry wrote a letter of clarification and admission of guilt while incarcerated in Oregon, and it was forwarded by the warden to clear Kelly of the charge.
I, Harry Tracy, robbed the Exchange Saloon and gave to him, Kelly, a watch which I got from the bartender. It was in September when I robbed the saloon. I don't know the date, but it was just before the county fair. If the man is not outright, and I will give a satisfactory description of the crime so as to leave no doubt that I did it. Kelly was a stranger to me and did not know who robbed the saloon. I heard him say the bartender was a friend of his, and he also said he would give me $15 for the watch just to give it back to the bartender. I gave him the watch and left for Dickinson.
Controversy stirred by the letter prompted Montana Governor Robert Burns Smith to grant a full pardon, releasing Edward M. Kelly from prison. Freeing someone of a charge he himself claimed to have committed is emblematic of the noble outlaw ethos Harry Tracy outspokenly would align himself with. Or perhaps Harry just liked being obstinate, as he would later declare in open court.
I'll plead guilty to everything, and it'll make little difference to me whether I did it or not.
Harry would repeatedly declare that he had deep ties in Seattle.
I have friends in Seattle who will help me. I'll hold up Clancy's gambling house or some such place. I must have money, and I know how to get plenty of it.
Once in Washington State, Harry Tracy would drift through Tacoma and Olympia, down to Portland and Oregon, robbing more bartenders, streetcar conductors, and small businessmen, meeting up with a new partner in crime in Portland, David Merrill.
David Merrill was always a problem child.
Herb Carroll, Cowlitz County pioneer. As a teen, David was arrested in Portland for stealing a suit of clothes and $40. November 30th, 1887, he was sentenced to 90 days in the Portland jail, and David Merrill was already making news.
The parents have done what they could to reform the lad, but he seems incorrigible.
3 years later, January 10th, 1890, Merrill was again arrested in Portland, this time for robbing a store. David was given 3 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary, entering the prison on January 30th, 1890, and released on September 2nd, 1892. That would be David Merrill's first incarceration in the Oregon State Penitentiary. The second would end with him and Harry Tracy shooting their way to freedom.
Sensational outbreak at the state prison. Harry Tracy and David Merrill. 3 guards killed by 2 desperate convicts.
David Merrill was born in Cowlitz County, Washington, the southwest corner of the state on the Columbia River. The Columbia is the border between Oregon and Washington. David had extended family and deep criminal ties across the Northwest, including Portland and Seattle. Very possibly, Harry Tracy and David Merrill had known each other for years, from the time Harry had lived in the Northwest.
They were in the city in 1899 and spent a good part of their time in Tacoma and Olympia,
the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. There is an often printed tale of them meeting in a bar in Portland, David Merrill being in dispute with a loud man threatening to get violent. This pulpish version from The Wild Bunch by James D. Horan.
It was a spring night in 1898 when Tracy walked into a combination saloon and dance hall. "Whiskey," he said to the bartender, and placed his money on the bar. As the whiskey filled the glass, he heard loud voices behind him. Curious, he turned and saw a big drunken lumberman shaking his fist at a smaller man who was obviously a gambler. "You cheap tin horn!" the drunken man was shouting. "You rigged that deck!" the gambler said. "You're drunk." The lumberman went at him with a knife. With cat-like ease, Tracy stepped in between the lumberman and the gambler with a short shoulder blow, spun the bigger man across the table. As he started to struggle to his feet, shouting threats and curses, Tracy calmly kicked him in the face. He slid back, unconscious. At the table, the gambler rose and shook his cuffs nervously. He turned to the man in the dark blue suit, his hand outstretched. "Thanks, that damn fool might have cut me. My name's David Merrill." The man in blue smiled with strong, irregular teeth against his square, tan face. His eyes were gray and deep-set. "I am Tracy. Harry Tracy."
Portland was a major port in the Pacific Northwest, the Willamette and Columbia Rivers lending the city access to the Pacific Ocean and a global market for the ample amount of timber produced by the region. As much as Portland was emerging as a city of Victorian charm, new wealth, and rapid bicycle sales, Portland was still rightfully reputed as one of the most dangerous port cities in the world.
Portland, the most filthy city in the northern states,
the Oregonian reported in 1889. But the unsanitary sewers and gutters it reported on were a sliver of the unseemly side of the city. The waterfront was ripe with actual danger. The saloons and boarding houses catering to the sailors and other working-class people had a rightful reputation as a place where robbery, abduction, and violence were commonplace. In Portland, Harry Tracy made quick the transition from rural range outlaw to urban holdup man.
The False-Face Bandits.
For some of the holdups, Tracy and Merrill liked to wear masks. The False-Face Bandits, brutish and petty crime, scraping out a living, gaining a minor reputation for fleecing civilians and saloons. Tracy and Merrill robbed the 2nd Street trolley car, collecting citizens' assorted valuables, took the conductor's watch. Plumber's drugstore, they bound and gagged the clerk and stole postage stamps. At Russell's saloon, they tied Russell's hands behind his back and gagged him with a bar towel. They robbed Magoo's saloon, Jennings' place, Otto Neusler's saloon, Way's butcher shop, Barrett's butcher shop, and a grocer named Offner.
Police received information.
Maybe it was David Merrill's own drunken loud mouth, bragging at the local bars of his success.
Authorities came to know.
Be it an account of fine work by the Portland police or some snitch, authorities came to know where the Desperados could be found, a residence well known to the authorities and reputed to fence stolen goods.
Mother Merrill's house, Market Street and First.
Mother Merrill was an invention of the newspaper. David's mother's last name was Robinson, and she lived in Vancouver. Police surveillance showed David Merrill and Harry Tracy were using the house as a headquarters. Reports were that the older woman at the home when it was raided,
woman identified as Mrs. Merrill,
was the one who gave David Merrill's hiding place away to the police.
Merrill, a man of a mere 100 pounds, was found earlier having folded himself into the bottom drawer of a chest of drawers.
5'11" and 100 pounds. David was armed with a .45 when found folded in the bottom drawer. He surrendered without incident.
Merrill gave information which led to the capture of his accomplice.
Did David Merrill give information to the police? Did he set up Harry Tracy? Or was David belligerent, uncooperative, and unaware? This is a pivotal point of contention amongst authors, historians, and newspaper reports. The full import of this controversy would later be magnified after their escape from the Oregon State Penitentiary.
Hand and foot of convict Merrill's body projected above 2 fallen trees. Body identified to be Merrill.
After a body was found in the woods, full of bullet holes.
Warden Janes will not swear that it is convict.
I do not believe it was Merrill's body that was brought back to the penitentiary.
The face is unrecognizable.
But back in Portland, outside Mother Merrill's house, Harry Tracy was about to get arrested. Detective Weiner approached Harry Tracy, attempting to engage in conversation. Harry was recognizable from a distance as he was wearing his black Macintosh trench coat and matching wide-brimmed hat. Harry was instantly suspicious and kept walking. At 4th and Market Street, a Southern Pacific train. See that train? I guess I'll be taking it.
I guess you will not.
As Detective Weiner went to draw his weapon, 2 bullets barely missed his head. On the train, Tracy pointed his revolver at the conductor.
Highball it, buddy, or you're a dead man.
The engineer pulled the cord on the brake system instead.
I'm sorry, sir, but control of this train has passed out of my hands.
Tracy jumped from the train, heading up Harrison Street. But emerging from the gathering crowd was Albert Way.
Albert Way, son of Butcher,
with a shotgun. Young Albert was the son of one of the butchers who'd been robbed by Merrill and Tracy. Albert shot at Harry from some distance, hitting him in the back of the head with a load of birdshot, leaving a superficial wound. Shot and staggering, Harry attempted to flee but fell over a fence directly into the yard of a Portland policeman named Ephraim J. Wilkinson, who, along with Detective Weiner, arrested Harry Tracy.
Harry Tracy and David Merrill.
On March 21st, 1899, Harry Tracy and David Merrill were set to go to trial. Harry was being led down a corridor of the jail to the courtroom itself by jailer James Dodery, and Harry produced a gun. "Oh, it won't do you any good to kill me, Harry," Dodery reasoned with Harry. Deputy Sheriff Thomas A. Jordan.
Deputy Sheriff Thomas A. Jordan.
Concerned about the delay of Tracy's appearance in the courtroom, then discovered Harry in the corridor with the gun trained on jailer Dodery.
"Throw up your hands, Tracy. Throw 'em up."
Tracy fired at Jordan and missed.
Several shots exchanged.
The sheriff returned fire, 2 shots in response. Either bullets were close enough for Tracy to give up, or the alternate story that he lost grip of his weapon is true. Either way, Harry relented.
Planned escape.
All right, I surrender, gentlemen.
Harry Tracy was finally marched into the courtroom, and the escape was added to his sentence. He was given 5 concurrent 20-year terms in the Oregon State Penitentiary. Harry's conduct in court.
Harry Tracy became somewhat boastful and in vainglorious manner.
"I'll plead guilty to everything, and it'll make little difference to me whether I did it or not."
The prediction is made that before Tracy is in the penitentiary 5 years, he will be shot to death by a guard for attempting to escape, or he will commit murder again to regain his liberty.
So if you watched that whole video, You're pretty cool.
The preceding was one part of a 9-part project. To watch the next part, click here. Or to view the entire Harry Tracy documentary, click here. Well, that's just damn good news.